Welcome back, Ascend family, to the Sermon Recap Podcast. I am Pastor John, and I am here with my good friend Jeremy Hendon. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on this. This is my first time, so I'm excited.
On any podcast ever?
Oh, no, first time on this podcast.
On this one,
I've been
for
on
sure.
just a couple others. But.
Gotcha. All right. Well, Jeremy is on staff at Redeemer. Can you just tell us a little bit about what you've done here and then what you're currently doing?
Yeah, people joke here at Redeemer that I'm the guinea pig who's gone through. I started as an intern, and then it was a part-time thing, and then seminary resident, and then full-time, and then director, and I don't know. We'll see what's next. But I got to be the director of our young adult ministry and love that role for years, and then just recently moved into director of adult discipleship. And so I really get to speak into all things discipleship related here, which is exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So Jeremy and I go back a little ways. So it's awesome to be here with you today. We're going to jump in to Mark chapter 5, which you just preached a few days ago. Wink, wink. But instead of reading this, because it would take us forever, and you guys all know that I'm terrible at reading, I'm just going to quickly just do the big blocks, the big summary of what's happening. So Jesus has just finished at the end of Mark 4, and he has calmed the storm. And we talked about that being showing his authority over the created things, nature. So then they travel across the lake or the Sea of Galilee here to a land of the Gerasenes, which is a predominantly Gentile nation, part of the Decapolis, or however you pronounce it. It's one of those words. And so this is a predominantly Gentile nation. And as soon as they get there, they meet this man that has been possessed by what is called a legion of demons. And they've tried to bind him. They've tried to shackle him. They can't hold him down, but he is running around in tombs and like just a crazy guy out in the edges of society. Jesus meets him, and he commands the demons to come out of him, and he casts them into a herd of pigs. Those herd of pigs go over a cliff into the sea. And then he makes his way toward a house of a synagogue official named Jairus. Is that how you pronounce it? Jairus? One of those. So the synagogue official has come to him, and he asked him to come because his daughter is very sick, on the verge of death. On his way, as you can imagine, Jesus has crowds that are always pushing in on him, trying to touch him. We read that back in Mark chapter 3. But this woman who has been bleeding for 12 years comes up and just touches the hem of his robe. And Jesus stops in his tracks and asks everybody, "Who touched me?" And of course, you see this. What do you mean, who touched you? We're in a crowd. Everyone is touching you. We're all being touched. Mm-hmm. And he's like, no, somebody touched me, and I felt power leave me. That's somebody. Who was that somebody?
Yeah.
And so we see this woman, and he tells this woman, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed." And so as he's talking to this woman, a servant from this priestly official's house comes and says, "Your daughter has died." And Jesus tells the man, "Do not fear, but believe." And so they go to this man's house. He tells everyone to leave, tells his disciples that she is just sleeping, but she's not. Yeah. She's dead. And he raises her from the dead. Mm-hmm. And so that is where this story stops. He says, "Give her something to eat. She's ready to go." So we've just seen Jesus's authority over nature. We've seen his authority over demons. We've seen his authority over sickness. And now we've seen his authority over death. And so, Jeremy, what are some of the things that just stick out to you in this passage?
Yeah, I think just Jesus's willingness to go to these unclean places, and he's able to do that because he is pure. He cannot be defiled by that which is unclean. But whether it's sickness, whether it's this man plagued by demons living in the tombs, and even in an area, some of the research I was doing was saying there are herds of pigs nearby, which were considered to be unclean. And so Jesus is like intentionally rowing into this very unclean space to meet with an unclean man. And he doesn't hesitate to go to those kinds of places. He doesn't hesitate to stop while he's on his way to go, heal this young girl. You're probably part of the reason why the disciples are going, Jesus, I mean, everybody's touching you is because they feel hurried. They're like, we gotta get there. Go, time is of the essence. And Jesus doesn't hesitate to slow down and tend and care for the people that he needs to.
Yeah. And even in the middle of this, like, these are places that Jewish people would have considered like, we don't go here. So tombs, that's where death reigns.
Right.
And Jesus brings life in the place where death reigns.
Right.
And then you've got blood. Jewish people were not allowed or permitted to touch people that had such diseases. And yet this woman comes and touches him.
Yeah.
And he's like, daughter, your faith has made you well. Restoration comes where death is.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, this like that even just like weaves even into there's a dead body. You don't touch a dead body. And he takes her by the hand and says, be well.
Yeah.
Get up.
Yeah.
And she does.
Yeah.
So where death is, that's where Jesus goes to restore.
Right. That's right. And I love that you brought up that there's this progression. These stories all connect one to another. And I think that shows the importance of reading our Bibles in such a way that we're able to see more of these connections. Getting a verse of the day can be encouraging, and there's some good things about that. But if you're only reading your Bible in that kind of format or in very brief nuggets, you're going to sometimes miss, oh, wow, the author Mark here is really showing just in these powerful punches, one after another, who Jesus is. Yeah. Healer, and Messiah, even more significantly.
Absolutely. Yeah. We joke all the time that Mark shows us no details. He's just rapid fire. This happened, now this happened.
Boom,
in this chapter, it is literally like this happened, and now this happened to show you this is who Jesus is.
He loves that word immediately. Yeah.
Immediately they went here and now they went there. Yep.
Yeah. That's right.
So before we started recording, you and I were talking about Mark and his seemed love for the book of Isaiah.
Yeah.
As he enters into his intro in chapter 1, we talked about Isaiah 40.
Yeah.
And then you were talking about how he's eventually going to go to Isaiah 53. All of this showing that, Jesus is the one who brings comfort to his people. I think that's how Isaiah 40 starts out, right? Comfort my people.
That's right. Yeah.
And so, just let's talk a little bit about Isaiah and how Mark quotes him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Mark just quotes and if you go back to Mark chapter 1, I mean, the way he starts his gospel is with a few quotations. He quotes Isaiah, he quotes Malachi, I think it's 3:1, and then he quotes Exodus. And that happening at the very beginning of his gospel account is really strategic on his part. He's saying, hey, I want you to put a specific kind of like glasses on and view the rest of my gospel through this sort of lens. And Isaiah 40, he only quotes a little bit of it, but I mean, this is he doesn't have to quote much for his audience to know, oh, wow, this is a loaded text. If I were to say, for God so... I mean, what's coming to your mind is probably
love the world.
Yeah, love
that he gave his only son.
You just know the context of that and what that, hopefully, what that's about. And this is one of those loaded passages where he's like comfort, or he's saying, prepare the way of the Lord.
Their mind immediately goes to
this Messiah type of figure who is to come. In chapter 40 of Isaiah, verse 10, it says, behold, the Lord God comes with might, and his arm rules for him. Behold, his reward is with him and his recompense before him. Very strong, mighty language. And then the very next verse 11, he will tend his flock like a shepherd. He will gather the lambs in his arms. He will carry them in his bosom and gently lead those that are with young. And so we have the arms of God, both being used in power and might, and also so tenderly and kind with the little nursing ones, the lambs. And I think Jesus, we're seeing, and we're meant to see, Mark, makes that clear at the very beginning. We're meant to see Jesus is coming with great power over sickness, over the grave, over demons, over nature.
Yeah.
He has all of that power, but how does he use that power? Well, it's to care for people. It's to bring healing to places where, everything had been tried. There was no other option, and Jesus brings healing.
Yeah, and it's not just to a certain type of people. We know, like in the Old Testament, God made all these promises to Israel, yes, and he still keeps those promises, but Jesus isn't going just to Jews. Like this very first scene in chapter 5, this is a Gentile.
Yeah.
And you're cued into that because one, there's a herd of pigs next to him. So like, that's not going to happen in a Jewish setting.
Right.
But also like he's going into the region where it's known to be a Gentile heavy region.
Yeah.
And so like Jesus comes and he restores regardless of the person's background, regardless of their past. His message is for everyone.
Yeah.
And so he comes with great power, but also great tenderness to all of those that he has come for. And so, as we wrap up, I want you to kind of give us a little bit of how do you read the book of Mark? As you're reading through the book of Mark, what are some strategies or what are some ways that you should be looking through the book? Obviously, it's a bunch of stories just like seemingly just pushed together and like figure it out.
Yeah.
But as you're reading through the book of Mark, what questions are you asking?
Yeah, that's great. I really think looking at how an author begins their book really says a lot. And so going back to Isaiah 40, and then scholars recognize that in Isaiah's context, in that book of the Bible, there's this chunk of chapters that all go together that really speak into redemption and this new exodus that is to come. So I chapters 40 to 55 really speak into that. And so if you understand that not only, as Mark, drawing from Isaiah and from this, Isaiah 40 is one of my most favorite chapters in all of Scripture. So go read Isaiah 40. But also, what other incredible famous chapter is in that block? Well, Isaiah 53, the suffering servant. And so much of the beginning of Mark's gospel is hitting home power, immediately. Look at Jesus. Look at how awesome he is. And then there's going to be this sudden shift in tone where it's, but he's the one who's come to suffer. Yeah. And that's where that reference, and we don't have, all the time here, but I hope this just encourages some people to go look up these passages and try to make some sense of them. But the Malachi 3:1 speaks to, being on the way to the temple, and Jesus and Mark, Jesus is on the way to Jerusalem where he's going to be crucified. Yeah. And so with Mark just beginning, even with just those two references, he's giving you subtle hints that, hey, God himself, the one who rules, the one who cares for his people, the one who is to suffer, he's going to be on the way to Jerusalem, to the temple. All of that is in the very introduction of Mark. And so as you read through Mark and you see these things unfold, it's just amazing how succinct Mark is and how much he's packing into this. Yeah. It makes, not only does the Gospel of Mark come more alive that way, but you're able to see, look at how my whole Bible fits together. Yeah. These passages, even going way back into Exodus. I won't go into that here.
Oh man. No, but you're right. Like we've even brought out things on this podcast where we've talked, like Mark is laying some like Easter eggs, so to speak, for us to go back and look, because he's giving us a story. Yes. But he's also hinting toward there's something else back there. Yes. In the Old Testament or wherever he's quoting from, that you need to go back and look at, because this story is related to that.
That's right.
And so like,
it's like a hyperlink, Mark isn't just saying, man, this is just like my favorite passage that, he has this verse like tattooed on his leg. Right. He's like, let me just work this in here. He's evoking a whole context that you have to go back and understand. Okay, well, what's the context in Malachi? What's the context in Exodus? What's the context in Isaiah? Yeah.
No, that's so good. And even now, like he's using other literary devices like foreshadowing right here. Like he brings a girl back to life.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and eventually you'll see Lazarus be brought back to life.
Yeah.
And then you'll see Jesus bring himself back to life. Like it's there,
Yeah.
but it's just a small little taste. Like he has power over death. He has power over death. And eventually he's going to start hinting at, I'm going to go die.
Yeah.
But I will rise.
Yeah.
Like,
but you don't need to be fearful of that, because
Right.
I've already shown you I have power over
I've already
death.
shown you that I have this power, but
Yeah.
man, it's so good.
Yeah.
Well,
But I mean, if I were one of his disciples at that time, that would have gone over my head too, probably.
oh yeah, for sure.
It's in hindsight we're able to see
sure.
these things. And that's just the advantage we have of believers at this time in the history of the church. We're able to look back and see with such clarity things that, the disciples long to understand. And we see why Jesus says, hey, it's better if I leave you and I leave you with my spirit, because we have the Spirit of God who helps us, illumines these kinds of things to us. If you spend time in these passages, you'll see beautiful connections you wouldn't have expected to find.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
If you seek, you will find.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's
Students
right.
that were looking in Luke a couple weeks ago, we just looked at that. So,
John, really quick, you mentioned, how do we study Mark? And then I talked about a bunch of other Bible books, but I think going back, just what is the context here, and even going back, I love that you took us back to, Jesus calming the storm. It's also really helpful to go back to the parable of the sower. And Jake Van Gils, our students director here at Redeemer, just preached not too long ago on this passage, did a phenomenal job. And he just brought out how really the point of this parable, in so many ways, there's so much it's so rich. There's so much
has so many layers in there.
There's so many layers, but a major point of the parable is, hey, we're to be faithful to go scatter seed everywhere on all types of soil. And we're not going to know what kind of soil we're scattering seed on, but even the places where we might think, wow, that doesn't seem like there's going to be anything that's going to grow there. Well, we should scatter seed there. Because look, Jesus goes before us, and right after Mark 4, where does he go? He goes to the place where you are, like you've already brought up, to the Gentiles, to this very unclean place, immediately met by an unclean man running at him. Yeah. I mean, this is a place we would expect, I don't know, if I were in that situation, I'd be like, let's get back in the boat. Let's row away. Yeah. Jesus steps out and he scatters seed, and this man is restored as a result. And so I think one of the practical applications for us is, hey, my neighbor who's caught up in sin or is living a certain kind of lifestyle that I would think, man, they would never be open. There's no shot they'd be open to the gospel. Well, I need to be faithful to scatter seed there too, because you never know how God's going to use it.
That's so good. And even if you're met with resistance, AKA the storm, Jesus says, let's go to the other side. And then he goes to sleep and they run into a storm. It doesn't mean you turn around and go back.
Right. Yes.
He says, so they keep going. They make it to the other side. They don't turn around. So still be faithful to keep scattering seed, even if you're met with resistance. Like, just keep sowing.
Just keep sowing.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, all right. Anything else on Mark 5?
No, this has been sweet. Yeah. I'm sure there's so much more that could be said, but this has been great. And we're recording this. It's probably no surprise to anyone, the Monday before my sermon. So I hope that a lot of this actually doesn't make the sermon, so that this has felt fresh and new. I'm sure we've repeated some things here, but it's all good. Thanks for having me. I'm like I said, excited to be here.
Repetition is the key to learning. So even if you did say it, it'll help us remember more. So
That's right.
All right. Ascend family, you are loved. We will see you on Sunday.